do a quick recap of yesterday. We have now our data. What we're looking at is for the year 2022, and then the same columns of data in our data of 2021. That's what we're going to be trying to compare across a number of criteria. So you can see 2022 looks like this, 21 looks like this, with very identical data. And again, we're looking first at just campuses, and campuses can be seen as a campus code in a district code, and so you see something that looks like this, where it's district code dot campus code. And that's going to be the identifier we're going to use throughout our work today. So I'm going to do a VLOOKUP using that search key in 2022. It's already in the left column, so I'm going to grab all of that. So A to J. And I'm looking first for the column F. So A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's sorted false. All right, so before we copy this over or do anything, I want to look at it and see what needs to stay in that particular place. We're always going to be looking at the A column, and in our data will always be looking from A to J. Okay. Before I autofill, I'm just going to do across. So that's doing this. So I've started looking at test takers. Now I'm going to look at percent. That's 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now I want to do the exact same thing, but for the 2021 data. So I need to change my data to be looking at 2021. Same thing. So I'm going to drag that across. My 6 becomes a 7, becomes an 8, becomes a 9, becomes a 10. All right. Now I can grab all that. I can fill it down. I'm going to see a lot of asterisks. I'm going to see a lot of less than 10s. I'm going to see a lot of non-NAs, meaning that is not visible. That particular school did not submit anything in that particular year. In that year, you see it. Some will be on this side and NAs on the other side, and back and forth, and that's totally fine. So that's the data in. Now I'm ready to work with a pivot table. So I'm going to grab the data, insert a pivot table on a new sheet. And I'm going to look at my first few questions. So the first question says, which campus had the greatest increase in test takers? So I want to find increase. And yesterday, in some classes, we did this with a number, created a new column that changed. So you do the 22 minus 21. You can also do this. We're going to look at our schools, just like that. So CH school, great. And I want to look at test takers. And to get the change, I could either create a column in the data and include that in my pivot table, or like we did in our data campus week, I could use calculated fields. So calculated fields wants us to use column headings that we see over here. If there's a space, which there is in this particular data, we're going to need to add 22 test takers, single quotes, minus 2021 test takers. And if I've done that right, I should get a number. So it references these columns. Whatever you type in here has to be visible in this list of all of the columns that are part of our data of our pivot table. All right. So now I want to sort it by this calculated field. And I can see that the school with the biggest drop of participants was Panther Creek. And do the same thing over here. And I'm going to say now these are descending. Great. So I've got Panther Creek, Northwest Guilford. Those are telling me the positive and negative changes. If I wanted to look at the percent, I'm going to come make another table over here. Now I need to look at the columns of percent. So instead of test takers, percent and percent. Great. I see a Millennium Charter had a, and then I'm going to do one more time. Now I'm doing descending, and we'll see a few things here. We'll see some schools that have 100%, and what this likely means is that we have something going from text to a number or a number to a text, and in that shift you're seeing some confusion from the pivot table. What we would need to do, and you can see this in our VLOOKUPs, we would need to look back at where we have a non-numeric field and put in a number. So less than 10, we could just say 10. We would need to change that on our data over here in our tabs that we're going to be accessing. That's not critical for us when we're just trying to make pivot tables and do something with this to look at it. If you said right now Panther Creek had a decline, I said come over here, who had the biggest decrease? Test takers was Panther Creek. Who had the biggest increase? I'm looking at my pivot table. Biggest increase, Northwest Guilford. Come back over here, who had the biggest test taker? And because what we're going to look at today is we're going to do everything with campuses. So this is campuses, this is campuses. Okay. And these two obviously will involve campuses as well. So I'm going to say, then percentage-wise, Millennium Charter had a significant drop. And Pinnacle Charter and Middle College had a significant growth. Great. And that's not totally true. There's an asterisk in this, and we probably would look into the data a little bit more if this was for a partner or some sort of business. Today, we're just looking at the data as to understand how to work with pivot tables. So now we have this question. Across the state, which campus with 100 test takers had the highest average total in 2022? So I'm going to look at my pivot table. Which campus, so I'm looking at schools, had the highest total, so I'm dragging total into values, and had a test taker count greater than, so I'm looking filter by condition, greater than 100. I think in first period we did this with a formula, and the formula would be sorting and filtering. So I need to do a filter where a condition is met. So if a filter where a column test takers is greater than 100, and then I'm sorting on another column, and I think that we'll find that it's easier to do with our pivot tables. So next question says same thing. I'm going to copy this over one more time. Give me another thing to work with. Instead of looking at totals, I'm looking at English reading writing. Instead of 100, I'm looking at greater than 250 people in that school testing, and I want to sort it again so that the highest number is at the top by my English reading and writing. Sort that by UID, sort by schools. You can actually get rid of that. NC School Science and Math, again with 699. Okay. Then we want to look, where does Chapel Hill rank in math? So same idea. There's no filter there. So if I said, copy this one more time. No filter, look at math. What I might want to do, because when I sort this by my math scores, sum of math scores, I get a lot of, I'm going to throw in a UID because there are a couple schools that have duplicate names. Sort this by the math as well. And let's say that the value in my math is greater than 1, which will take away all of the other greater than 0. should take away all of our NAs and things. Okay. The question is, where does Chapel Hill rank? So I can look, that's number 1 in the sequence. I could just grab down and see that Chapel Hill is 12th. We could absolutely do a rank function to do that if you wanted to get a number from that, ranked 12th. Okay. So now we're looking at our total scores, and now we have a filter where we're looking at something between. Look over here. I'm looking at, not math, but I'm looking at totals. And I want to look at test takers, filter my test takers. Between, condition, filter a condition, is between 101 and 151. Sort it by our totals. And I can see that Chapel Hill is the first in that range, you know, having a significant number, 126 plus or minus 25 students, so probably comparable size school. How did we do in that area of the average total? So first, average total. And that's what we did yesterday. I think that this would be a quick review. And I think doing it with pivot tables we'll do in first period as well. It's a much more flexible and manageable process than doing it solely with formulas. So enjoy, and if you have any questions, we can work on it more. Thanks.